Let's go ahead and get your thoughts to Trump saying that Tuesday he is expected to be arrested in New York. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, where you can call in live and local 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com. Would love to hear your thoughts on the headline that Trump expects to be arrested Tuesday. And those are, of course, after allegations of improper campaign disclosure, I think is what the trajectory is for this particular case out of New York, where they're saying that he gave hush money to Stormy Daniels like 7 years ago. And somehow that was a unjust campaign contribution of sorts to help him in his bid for president in 2016. When, some are pointing that that's a flimsy case. What else is going on here? But it is a pretty amazing turn of events if indeed it is the case that Trump gets arrested and charged with a crime, because he is one of several Republicans that have thrown their hat into the ring to be the Republican nominee for 2024. Now, Trump, a former president, obviously, you guys all remember the 4+ years of Trump-Russia collusion, where that was piped through social media and corporate media. You remember all of the, various ways to try to block Trump from being able to be heard on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. He even launched his own Truth Social campaign, online, a platform where he can go and post whatever he wants, though it's probably not as highly trafficked. But he was restored on Twitter. He was restored on Facebook and YouTube, where he did post a video on YouTube and Facebook apologizing for it taking so long. Looked like a clip from a previous rally. But regardless, President Trump, former president, possibly going to be arrested and indicted. So some of the pretty incredible things going on here are rather amazing. But we were just talking about the banking crisis a bit. And Elon Musk seems to be a bit suspicious of what's going on here with the idea of arresting President Donald Trump. And he posted this meme. And it looks like Austin Powers. He's on the red phone. He says, the banking system's collapsing. And then you see, if you're familiar with Austin Powers, the movie, one of the characters was one of his lieutenants who just would scream various orders. And so Austin Powers says the banking system's collapsing. And the character that screams various orders says, "Arrest Donald Trump!" So you can see that even, Elon Musk, pretty prominent influencer of sorts on social media, let alone the richest man in the world, seeing this as a distraction from other things. Could it also be a distraction from, say, the Hunter Biden scandal, which really isn't about Hunter Biden, but more about the president currently in the Oval Office, President Joe Biden, and all of the different types of money that's going from one hand to another, allegations of a Chinese energy company giving millions of dollars to a operation that the Bidens profited from heavily. So, you've got investigations that the U.S. Congress is doing into that. And is that something that, people are trying to take attention away from by propping up this idea that the former president, Donald Trump, could be arrested? We'll get to your calls here at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Well, good morning, Greg. I'm glad you brought up the Russian hoax that was funded by Hillary Clinton with her campaign funds, which I think is kind of like what they're trying to accuse Mr. Trump of doing, misappropriating, money to fund some type of plan to deny democracy.
Or some kind of narrative. And what's interesting here is you bring up the Russia-Trump collusion and the dossier, the Steele dossier that Hillary Clinton and Perkins Coie, the attorney outfit that Hillary Clinton was using, did indeed pay for this. And that's been admitted to in court documents. But it's interesting because, at least when it comes to the hush money that Trump allegedly paid Stormy Daniels, that could be multifaceted for different reasons, right? It wasn't wasn't just possibly, campaign related. It could actually have been to limit any negative impact on his business brand or to limit any negative impact on his marriage. And apparently those are enough to assuage any possible charges. However, I don't think you can say the same thing about the money used to fund the Steele dossier that was then filtered and laundered through the FBI to allow for a surveillance of the Carter Page and the Trump campaign and so on. That obviously was for political reasons.
Are you saying, Greg, that there's two tiers of two different kinds of justice in America?
It's
one for Donald Trump and the rest get by with anything?
Well, we'll see what happens here, but the former president saying he's going to be arrested. We'll hear what another Republican candidate for president has to say, but first, another phone call. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hi, good morning, Greg.
Morning.
Yeah, you did the part there where about the Austin Powers movie with where saying arrest Donald Trump.
Right.
For the longest time, over the last few weeks, I have recently thought of that part of the Animal House movie at the end where Kevin Bacon is standing on the sidewalk screaming, "All is well!
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. All is well." Yeah, absolutely.
That reminds me of President Biden, what he's going through, right now and everything. And he's up there trying to,
Or was it Naked Gun where, Leslie Nielsen's walking away from a blowing up building saying everything's fine? Or even in real life, CNN with a burning building behind them and the graphic at the bottom says mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty incredible. I appreciate the call. Let's hear what one particular Republican candidate for president, Vivek Ramaswamy, he is running for the GOP nomination. He, was one of the first to sound off on this Saturday after former President Donald Trump announced that he expects to be arrested. So here's Vivek Ramaswamy on Saturday talking about the implications of this.
Today was an important day in the country. So the reason I'm doing this is because the rest of the Republican field, I think, has been deafeningly silent about an important issue in the country today. Yes, I know it's St. Patrick's Day weekend. Yes, I know there's a lot of other issues in education or elsewhere that need to be addressed that others have talked about. But that's not the news of today. Okay, the news of today was that this morning we learned that it is likely that the New York Manhattan District Attorney is likely to indict a former president of the United States who is running for office. Now, I want to be very clear. I am in a presidential primary running against that individual, Donald Trump. But what I'm about to say has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with the integrity of an election and the integrity of a self-governing democracy. So I don't care whether you root for Trump or whether you don't. If you root for the integrity of our constitutional republic, then you need to be on the side of being really clear. We cannot have politically empowered prosecutors eliminating the opposition of a ruling party using arrest power. It is a sad day in America. It is a dark day in America if you have the ruling party in this country using police power to arrest its political opposition. That would be the beginning of the end as we know it. And I'll ask everybody here, wherever you are, on supporting Trump or not, I don't care. A thought experiment. Rewind back to 2004. Okay, if Bush and Cheney used police power in this country to arrest John Kerry for a technical campaign finance violation that normally would never have been charged, and if most as a misdemeanor, liberals in this country would have cried bloody murder. And you know what? They would have been right. They would have had a point, and I promise to you, I would have been standing there right there with them to say, even if John Kerry's not my man, this is not the way we run elections in this country. This is not the way we run a justice system in our country. Whether or not, whatever your politics are, we put principles first.
So again, that's Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a Republican looking to get to the Republican nomination for president and saying that regardless of your thoughts and feelings about former President Donald Trump, the idea of using the judicial branch, the way to go about charging people using the Department of Justice or using local prosecutors with political vendettas to somehow try to craft and shape, who is going to be favorable or not heading into a primary is dangerous. Now, I know others are going to say, hey, if he broke the law, he needs to be held accountable. And the New York case is not the Georgia case, and the Georgia case could have more implications. And that's something that apparently you've got a grand jury investigating, Trump possibly trying to tamper with elections down in Georgia. The allegation is down in Georgia. So what's going to happen here in the weeks and months ahead, let alone tomorrow? I want to hear more from you as well. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number on WMAY. We'll get to more of your calls coming up, I promise. Been taking your calls about former President Donald Trump announcing on Truth Social over the weekend that he fully expects to be arrested come Tuesday in New York over alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels from like 7 years ago. So let's take a look at what the former president had to say on Truth Social. And he said on page 2, now illegal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime and whose leaders funded by George Soros, indicates that with no crime being able to be proven and based on old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors, fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America, will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protests take our nation back, the former president says on Truth Social. So some of the other headlines here that definitely want to go through and hear from you at 217-629-7970. Trump accuses the Manhattan District Attorney of prosecutorial misconduct, calls for investigation, and actually, if you look at Trump's Truth Social, he says this in several different ways. So if you get a chance, I don't know if you're on Truth Social, but it's truthsocial.com/@RealDonaldTrump, and you can see this for yourself. I don't think you have to be logged in. I'm not logged in to Truth Social, so. But you've got the former president's page sharing a whole host of things, including 55 minutes ago saying there are many years beyond the statute of limitations, which in this instance is 2 years. More importantly, there was no crime, he says. He also goes on to say it's the district attorney of Manhattan who's breaking the law by using the fake and fully discredited testimony, even by the Southern District of New York, of a convicted liar, felon, and jailbird Michael Cohen to incredibly prosecute, persecute, and indict a former president, and now leading by far presidential candidate for a crime that doesn't exist. Alvin Bragg should be held accountable for the crime of interference in a presidential campaign. So that's what the former president is alleging that Alvin Bragg's doing. And saying that Alvin Bragg is conducting prosecutorial misconduct and calling for an investigation. But Alvin Bragg, he says that his office won't be intimidated. The Manhattan District Attorney standing firm against Donald Trump's increasingly hostile rhetoric, including telling people to go protest. And this is interesting because you had people in the Democrats saying, hey, if you see a Trump person out in public, push back in their face. I mean, Maxine Waters essentially advocating for that. You've got even the current vice president having a fund that she helped fund, bail people out for committing various acts of protest that may have turned into property damage and so on. So interesting to see this ongoing back and forth and how it's going to play into the 2024 election cycle. This, while you've also got the specter of more questionable conduct being unearthed by the U.S. Congress, in particular the Republican-controlled House, when it comes to looking at banking records of the Biden family and how they may have taken $3 million from a Chinese energy company and then spread that out throughout their family back in 2017 and 2018. And what kinds of questionable conduct does that bring? And is that something more prescient that needs to be addressed rather than, blasting across all media landscape the prospect that the former president's going to be arrested? All right, we'll take a call here. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Gregory.
What's up?
Hey, I liked
Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments about this. Her solution is, oh, we don't need protests. We'll just, Congress, we got enough power now, we can actually defund them. Except for one thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is a state court. You have no funding authorization for them.
Yeah, you're right. It's a state level proceeding here on something that when it comes to the state district attorneys in New York, they are definitely separate from any of the federal Department of Justice actions, because apparently the federal Department of Justice has already looked at this and decided that they're not advancing any charges here. So we'll watch this closely and keep you posted on what happens. You'll likely hear all about it. So keep it here with us every weekday morning on WMAY.